All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is that time of the week. It is time for another Hump Day with the man, the myth, the legend, Bix Weir. Very excited to be hosting this week. V is on a much-needed gorilla vacation. So very excited to be riding shotgun today with Bix. So Bix, how are you?
I'm good. I can just imagine the gorilla on the beach.
Yeah, right. He probably doesn't need any sunscreen or sunblock or anything.
No way. He's got his winter coat on.
Winter coat on, yeah. So he's soaking up the sun, getting some rest, some relaxation, and just kind of running the show here. So having some fun with it.
Yeah, good. And so let's get to work. There's so much
Let's
to
do
talk
it.
about. It's crazy.
Let's do it. Where would you like to begin?
Well, I'd love to talk about the new high-tech world that we are entering into right now. The technology has been available to us for a little over a decade, I think, to really change the way that we move into the future. If you think that the first 10, 20 years of the internet was something exciting and special and really changed things, wait for the next 100 years. I think there's gigantic, monumental changes in the way we interact with each other, in the way we do business, in the way we deal with the monetary situation. So I'm really excited.
I was thinking about it today as well, and listened to a couple interviews in regards to the blockchain, everything that's ahead of us, the disruptive industries, the amount of utilization that's going to be occur. And you're absolutely right. I think this is to say the least, it's a very exciting time to be witnessing and being alive through this, Bix.
Yeah, especially if you recognize what's happening as it's happening. If you go back, say, 100 years from today, it was, we were still kind of on a gold and silver standard. The Federal Reserve was invented, but the majority of the world was on the gold and silver standard. Maybe the Federal Reserve situation changed things to a promise of a gold standard back in the early 1900s. But you just look at the way that the monetary system has evolved, and the way we interact with each other has evolved from back then when we're driving horse and buggy type stuff. The mailman didn't drive around in a mail truck. He was on a horse probably back then, and the time it took to interact was it took days or weeks or months for letters to get delivered and things like that. Now we have instant interaction at the tip of our fingertips. So I'd like to look back 100 years and see how things have changed, and then look forward 100 years and try to imagine how the world will be different in 2117, 100 years from now. Will we be, clearly this old monetary system that we've been, struggling with for so long, the last couple of 100 years, I would say, is not serving humanity and will need to go away. And I would expect it will go away very soon. But then you look at 100 years from now, do we really think we'll be walking around with gold and silver coins in our pocket as a means of exchange? No, it's not efficient. It's not going to be the answer to the problem that we have now, the ending of the old system, the criminal system, and the start of something new. What will be the answer is something more on a more honest level and a more high-tech level. And that is the cryptocurrencies and the new blockchain technologies that will inject honesty into every business, every industry we have today.
Yeah, and it is amazing. I mean, I think this is going to be a fun show to take a look back and then also talk about what the future is. And it's tough to grasp, I think, for the most part, in terms of sometimes putting your mind around things. But when you take a look at the past and maybe for example, the Kodak cameras, the Blockbuster video stores, the music stores, and buying vinyl records as opposed to buying downloads. Now there's so many examples, Bix, that we can give, and then more importantly talk about what that future may look like.
Yeah, I listened to a Reggie Middleton interview or YouTube podcast he did the other day. This is the inventor of Veritasium, And he was talking about just that. It's not necessarily the technology that changes things. It's the business plan to implement that technology and the business model you're going to be a disruptive technology. It's not just, okay, the technology is here, it's going to replace everything. No, it's how it's implemented in the business strategy, because when you're talking about disruptive technologies, it's a technology and a business plan to take out the old system and implement something new. People are very reluctant to move to something new unless they're either forced to or they find it more exciting. If they find it more exciting, it takes a little longer. If they're forced to, as in, if there's a monetary crash, they will be forced to move into something else, and there will be choices out there. Prior to the invention of Bitcoin, there were no choices. It was gold and silver was the best choice, always. Always, going back, thousands of years in monetary history. All the gold and silver bugs say, well, gold and silver has thousands of years of history, and it is the best form of money because of that. I would say no, it is not the best form of money today. It might have been prior to the blockchain technologies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, all the other cryptocurrencies out there that have their own unique reasons for being there. So we're going to have a lot of options. Before, there was no options. Now people are getting used to paying for things on a plastic card and not having to think about where that money came from, or if that money is really there. And is it electronic blips? Yes. Do people understand that? For the most part, no. They think, they put their money in the bank and they think the bank hangs onto their money until they're ready to pull it out, and that's not what happens at all. So I think the monetary system will change with the next banking crash, which I see coming over the next year or so. And then it will probably happen in stages where, a big bank in Italy goes down, a big bank in Germany goes down, a big bank in the US goes down, and kind of tick-tocks away until all the patches aren't patching the overall problem, which is the market manipulation, the dishonesty in our monetary system. And something like the blockchain comes along, and it is sitting there waiting for us to utilize it because it's a trust machine. And I am real excited about it, the blockchain technologies. And the reason it's a trust machine is it's an open ledger that everybody can see and everybody has to approve. And there's no way to go back in time and change the blockchain. It is set in stone. So it is amazing adventure. Even the gold and silver bugs who hate Bitcoin must admit, and most of them do admit, that the blockchain is an amazing technology. But why not use that technology in one of the most important things we need? Money. We need truth and honesty in money. And those who say, oh, I love blockchain, but I hate Bitcoin, that argument fails on its face, because they go together. The Bitcoin blockchain has to be there. If the Bitcoin blockchain, if Bitcoin's not around, there's no Bitcoin blockchain. Yes, you can have other blockchains, but why? That's the kind of the thing that gets to me about these guys who say, blockchain technology is great. It should be free. It should be all this stuff. No, you can't get a society to, if you have an industry that has their own blockchain, it would be subject to manipulation because there's all this centralization. People need incentives to continually approve these transactions, and that's what blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, represents. But the biggest thing we need is a sound form of money. So everybody who says the Bitcoin sucks, but the blockchain is great, misses the whole point that the blockchain makes Bitcoin a sound form of money, and the blockchain makes other things a sound form of dealing with people. So yeah, it gets a little crazy, and it's mostly people who missed out, who didn't understand what was going on in the beginning, and think they missed out on the moves for all the cryptocurrencies. I say not at all. You are even before the beginning of the excitement. This is the first batter in inning one in my book, as far as cryptocurrencies and the blockchain technologies.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like that first IBM computer that was hauled off that big Boeing 747 that took up an entire room, and look where it's evolved now. And we're starting to witness those things. And I'm very excited about what that future entails in regards to the transparency, that the truthfulness that can exist with the blockchain technology, and in part directly tied to the financial sector, that we know we've witnessed, Bix, over the last several years, the disparity between the lower class, the middle class. We've seen that the majority of wealth under the current system, that 99% of those are the 99% people that do not get to participate in those high dollars, those high investments, and the 1% that has stolen the wealth of where they are today. And the cryptocurrency space and blockchain can completely change that. It's a game changer.
Absolutely, 100%. And what it does, we've had the same monetary system pretty much since the invention of the Federal Reserve Bank. And, it has morphed over time. At first, it was just, there was still gold and silver as a backstop. Silver was still being used as money back then. But with the introduction of industrial uses for silver, all that silver is gone. All that silver has been used up. I think the future for silver is very bright. When the manipulation ends, I think silver will absolutely take a moonshot, and that moonshot will be probably slow down in the $600 per ounce range. Is a couple of people are throwing that number around, and it truthfully, it all depends on the dollar, what the dollar is doing at the time. If it goes into hyperinflation mode, which would be hard to do because the dollar is the world's reserve currency still, and it is manipulated every day by the U.S. Treasury and the Exchange Stabilization Fund and the Federal Reserve of New York and all their prime dealers. Every day, the Forex market is rigged. So it would be hard for hyperinflation to happen. But what is happening as we speak is this new ecosystem, econometric ecosystem, is being built right next to our current system. And it will be growing and building and proving itself to be stronger and stronger. And it's a trustless system. Not meaning there's no trust in it. It means you don't have to trust in any single party to verify transactions. That's what the blockchain is, trustless. You don't need trust. You have facts and you have math behind it. 2 + 2 = 4 in any type of situation we're talking about. So it's a trustless machine, meaning that you don't need to trust it. It's going to work no matter if you trust it or not. So you can get rid of all those third parties that suck money and value out of transactions. All the DTCC and the COMEX and the LBMA and the New York Stock Exchange. All that stuff can be done away with by using the blockchain technology to kind of engineer a new system with peer-to-peer transactions. You have a share of stock that I want to buy, and I have something to trade for it. We don't need the DTCC and the regulators and the stock exchanges and all that. We can trust ourselves to do our own transaction.
Right. And to pause for a minute, because if you think about the dollar, the actual paper currency, is it accurate to state, Bix, that primarily it just serves as a method of exchange?
Well,
and so
yeah, it's supposed to be a store of value as well. Like any money, it's supposed to your labor is represented by the salary that you get, and your salary shouldn't be depleted because they're inflating the money supply. The things we use as money is being destroyed by the constant printing, constant bailouts. And when you think about what is money these days, is it the paper bills? Is it the coins they use? Is it the electronic balance of your checking savings account? Is it your retirement holdings? Is it the derivatives people hold? What is money these days? And money has been really perverted and twisted and inflated to the hundreds of quadrillions because people use different things as money these days. It's not just that piece of paper in your pocket, and it's not just things that represent the U.S. dollar, the bonds and the M1, M2, M3 money supply. What is money? And then it gets to those people who say, well, Bitcoin is not limited to 21 million coins because there's all these other alternative cryptocurrencies. Well, I would say no. Bitcoin is limited to 21 million coins, just like it's similar to different currencies trading today. And every not cryptocurrencies, but our regular fiat unbacked currencies. You can trade in yuan and euros and US dollars. US dollar just happens to be the dollar, the world's reserve currency still, but that will change. So you can look at Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies as, you know, Bitcoin is probably the crypto reserve currency, but you've got a lot of other types of currencies floating around. And it even gets into, if you think about the fiat money, it's not just the euro and the yuan and all that. It's the derivatives that are laid on top of that, and the stocks and the bonds and everything representative of value. So cryptocurrencies, with Bitcoin being the reserve currency of the cryptoverse, you've also got Litecoin and Vertasium, one of my favorites, and all kinds of. Now you have Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, which is the result of a fork, and everybody was all freaked out. And now everybody who's holding Bitcoin now have a hell of a lot more value. Bitcoin Cash is trading in, you know, a huge chunk of the market cap of Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, and it's evolving, you know, so quickly. Picking up just a little bit of an echo. Bix, you there?
Probably not. Yeah, probably not my side, because I got everything shut off. But
well, getting back to it, and I think in part, you know, there's certain percentage of our population that still likes holding that cold hard cash, Bix. That, and I know I don't. It's very rare that if I have cash, and if I do, more than likely my kids are raiding my billfold and getting my cash out. But what are your thoughts on that? Because there's still that argument there that oh, we're being moved to a cashless society, and you know, we're really worried about that and what that's going to lead to. You know, so, and again, what are your thoughts on that? What's the counter discussion regarding the cashless society?
Well, it gets back to the battle between the good guys and the bad guys. There's nothing wrong with a cashless society as long as a single point of contact doesn't have control over it. As long as your government doesn't have control over that cash, of the electronic cash. The Bitcoin blockchain and the protocol used in Bitcoin make sure that it's a decentralized form of money, form of exchange, form of tokens. There's nothing wrong. See, this is the big battle. Everybody's saying, "Oh no, the government's gonna," you know, all the doom and gloomers are saying, "No, the government's just gonna. It's easier for them to take over the Bitcoin blockchain, and they're gonna put the mark of the beast on our heads and control everything through control over these electronic forms of money." They can't. They could have. If they are, it depends who's playing the game. I have always stood in the last 7-8 years that there are good guys taking out these bad guys, and if we can keep Bitcoin and these other cryptocurrencies decentralized, meaning nobody controls it, but everybody controls it. If we can keep it that way, and that's going to be our fight, is the fight for truthfulness and honesty without government intervention or government behind the scenes pulling the strings, then it is the best thing humanity could possibly have, because otherwise we're screwed. You know, we know what the bad guys want. They want to stick that mark of the beast on our head and have us slaves to their system. They want to control all our digits and all our actions. Bitcoin used improperly, used differently than what the protocol is, something like Bitcoin that, you know, the US government controls or the deep state controls. Yeah, that would be their dream. A cashless society that that the government controls everything you do. That is what we fight against. But on the flip side is this decentralized form of transacting business without government at all. And I think our founding fathers saw that as the way to go, and they tried to implement it back in 1776. They tried to implement their form of a decentralized government with only a few of your liberties that must be given up just to protect everybody's liberties. But it has clearly been perverted and twisted, and it is no longer valid these days, unfortunately. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, there's so many disruptions occurring in the cryptocurrency space, the blockchain space. You know, gosh, alone over the last gosh, 2 to 3 years. It's evolving so quickly. Is there a need to, so in regards to the banking shift, I mean, we're seeing some very unique things as far as ICOs, the fact that there's going to be an opportunity that you don't, if you're starting up a business where traditionally, you had to have a business plan, you had to go to, crowdfunding some type, where now the future could be the community to actually fund these new business startups.
And that's exactly what's happening with the ICOs. Now the government is currently trying to stick their nose in it, supposedly to protect from the fraud. And yes, there will be massive amounts of fraud, and there are a lot of criminal activities going on in the crypto space, just like any space. And the government is becoming more and more active in the regulation of that situation, for basically because people aren't prepared to take care of themselves. We live in a nanny state still. So they're trying to inject some nanny state thoughts and principles into the cryptoverse. Will it happen? It has started, but remember, we have a serious problem in governance right now. Our government, as we know it, is crumbling, and it's not just because of Trump, and it's not just because of the alt media, the left media, and it's not just because of the Democrats and Republicans. I think that the source of all this has to do with we have given up so many of our liberties for protection, and as soon as we do that, we run into the situation where we are right now, where people can really take control of our lives, and there's no way out. When they control the monetary system, they control our lives, and they control who gets what. How much free healthcare does this person have, and are you going to hold a gun to a doctor's head to force him to work for free? Things like that. I think that is what is corrupting the government situation. As soon as we get this pedophile revelations, I hear a third of the government's going to go down. So without government, we don't have to worry about all these regulations, because there will be very little government to enforce those regulations.
Yeah, and that's a very important to understand that. You're absolutely right. And there was a recent concern in regards to the most recent SEC release in regards to the ICOs. You want to break that down a little bit for our listeners?
Well, yeah, it has to do with the DAO, that debacle that got it got hacked, and what was the regulation behind it? Was this the real question is, according to securities law, there's certain things you need to register, you need to do to inform people who make investments. The big question is, what is a cryptocurrency? Is it a security? Is it a form of money? Is it a token that doesn't fall in any of these categories? And the SEC has been floundering about making rulings, because there's no law on the books that they can enforce. The job of the SEC is to enforce the law and to classify a cryptocurrency as a security. You got to go through, okay, what is a security? And the cryptos, they're all different, and the way they were marketed were different, and the way they approach them. Like Veritasium is clearly a software program, but there is a Veritas token. I think Reggie Middleton has done a great job in proving that this is not a security. He's selling software, and he's selling consulting services. Other coins, I say, yeah, I could see an SEC guy going in there saying, no, this is a security, and throwing a wrench in it all. But without rules on the books already, the SEC has little power as far as regulation. If something new is created that's not covered in their, or is not clearly defined in their rules and regulations.
Right, because they need, the government, you're absolutely right, the government, the banks are dependent upon the traditional monetary system, and that's people putting money into the system, whether it's in the form of taxes, whether it's in the form of putting money in the bank. I mean, it's absurd to think. There was a new report that came out, Bix, in regards to personal and government debt. And at this point, the government and personal debt is over $41 trillion. over 300 and almost $330,000 per household that
It's
we're indebted
insane.
to.
Yeah.
And so how is the current monetary system working?
Yeah.
It's not.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not. It needs massive reform, and that's the space that cryptocurrency and blockchain could provide.
Yeah. And when you think about the SEC getting involved and chiming in, and all they're really doing is stifling innovation in the United States, which is really bad because the SEC is not allowed to go in other countries and say, well, they can say whatever they want, but what country, what citizen in any other country is going to listen to the United States Security and Exchange Commission, one of the most criminal organizations out there? So and that's why the SEC has not put on any rules and regulations about the cryptos. They don't. They want the people who really, the good guys, as I call them, behind the scenes, want this innovation to grow and blossom. And they know that if there's excessive regulation, it will just grow and blossom in other countries, and we'll lose our competitive edge on the tech front. And that is not a good place to lose your competitive edge. So I don't see any prohibitive uh, SEC regulations right now. The reason that some people, that some companies and these ICOs are saying that this is not available to the U.S. citizens is because the U.S. SEC and the U.S. system is probably the most corrupt system out of anybody, and they just don't want to mess with it, and they don't need to mess with it because everybody else in the world is moving forward. If the SEC does clarify their rules about what is a security, or even carves out an exception for anything crypto related, and have it, let it be the wild wild west, I think that's what should happen, because people need to take responsibility for their own investments and for their own self. And that's where we have turned into a nanny state. And this nanny state, if they start putting rules and regulations on the cryptos, which they really haven't done yet, so this is all theoretically,
Right.
then we're going to stifle everything in the United States.
Yeah, and I have a question regarding that. And when you think of the labeling like cryptocurrency and ICOs, Bix, I like to break things down. I don't, because we're involved with it daily, right? I know you probably spend at least probably 3 to 4 hours daily, looking at the market, studying, looking at, cryptocurrencies and the new ones evolving, potential ICOs, where probably your average person just wouldn't have time and do that. So I don't want to assume anything that people don't know. And where I'm going with this is do some of the definitions, do some of the labeling in regards to cryptocurrencies, ICOs, do those need to like be reformed a little bit in your mind? And what I'm getting at is that not every coin that's offered is going to act like a currency. It could be more of like a traditional buying shares in a company, like an ICO. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, but what you're asking is for someone else, a third party, to come in and kind of define it for everybody else, and that's where I think the the people in the United States, especially because of the SEC rules and regulations, have really removed responsibility from themselves and made it the responsibility of the regulators to figure out what is good and what is bad. The people who are being rewarded right now for, due to price appreciation of a currency or a token in the crypto space, are being rewarded because they have the knowledge, the balls, the gumption to get out there, to study, to do their homework, and to buy things, understanding what they are in the future. And I love that environment, because it really should be. We shouldn't rely on government regulators who are beyond criminal, and probably as dumb as a stump, because they had to get a government job instead of going out there and doing it themselves, to tell us what is safe to invest in and what is not safe to invest in. And we need to get back to something like that. The survival of the fittest in the crypto world is going on right now, by bringing in a third party, which is completely the antithesis of what the blockchain represents. I think it's not a good thing at all.
Right, right. Yeah, and because right now, for the most part, like Bitcoin, probably one of the originators of the cryptocurrency space, has, kind of led the way. But now we're seeing just all different types of currencies coming involved. But in particular, like if you purchase a Bitcoin or a Litecoin, there's definitely tangible things, that you can go to retailers, you can purchase things with Bitcoin versus some of the other ICO coins that are valued internally versus externally. Is that not accurate?
That is, but it's up to the due diligence of any investor to do the due diligence. It's not up to a government regulator to say, oh, don't do this, don't do that. That's where we've gotten into the nanny state. And yes, people will get conned, people will get scammed. You got to be smart to get in there and invest. It shouldn't be, oh, let me hold your hand so that here's your relationships of U.S. bonds you should have to your tech companies, to your emerging economies. That old system of the past is what got us in this problem in the first place. And you got to remember, these people at the SEC and within our government, there's a reason they work for the government. It's because they can't get jobs out there, and they're not the brightest, tax in the box. And
right.
But they do like control, and they do like to tell you what is right and what is wrong, and they do like to stop innovation and stop the world from moving forward because it doesn't fit into their box.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to take a look at the federal government, you take a look at some of the situations that have occurred. One of the examples I like to give is Kim.com with Megaload is a perfect example of complete government overreach, where they seize asset of a non-U.S. citizen, doesn't even have any funds located in the United States. I think it was in Switzerland. The government comes in to the U.S., they seize all his assets, everything that's taken place. You see something like that, but then you also see JP Morgan, the companies, the price rigging in the metals markets, the London whale, all these things that they continuously get away with. And that's why the system needs to change. And so I'm very excited regarding the cryptocurrency space, the blockchain, and I'm really hoping that it can establish that. But at the same time, I am mindful regarding the Bernie Madoffs, those type of individuals, that could infiltrate the cryptocurrency space.
That's a great example. Bernie Madoff. If you look at Bernie Madoff, how was it that he got away with what he got away with? First of all, it wasn't 50 billion; it was 500 billion. It was part of the Mossad and all that. So if you go deep down there, but you got to look at, okay, the SEC was supposed to be in there regulating, right? Bernie Madoff was the head of the NASDAQ, the chairman of the NASDAQ before he started Bernie Madoff Investments. The SEC, the head regulator of Bernie Madoff, ended up marrying Bernie Madoff's daughter. And then you got Bernie Madoff only had one bank for his $50 billion supposedly investment fund. And the only bank that saw every transaction go in and out was JP Morgan. And JP Morgan has rules and regulations on their board. The board has to approve certain levels of transactions. So the board approved everything on Bernie Madoff, and none of those guys went to jail. The SEC wasn't overhauled because the regulator ended up in the pocket of Madoff marrying Madoff's daughter.
Right.
The insanity of government within our lives, pretending to keep us safe. In what is really happening is they're colluding with the criminal banks and everybody, the revolving door situation where people work in the government and go make millions of dollars at a bank because they were a regulator. It is criminality. It needs to end. And the only way to end it is to take responsibility for our own investment decisions and destroy the federal government. I would say close to completely. There's 35 million people who work directly or indirectly for the U.S. federal government. That should be cut down probably 95% or more. And I think that is what's going to happen in this next crash, which is coming. I think by the end of the year, our government will be in pieces.
Right. And with everything in regards to exactly what you just said, and that it applies directly, towards the ICOs, there's calculated risk that each person considering, investing in an ICO or, buying cryptocurrencies, there's risk that each individual needs to assess.
Yeah. And if they do it right, they will be rewarded by an appreciating price. If they do it wrong, they will lose everything, and they can't go crying to anybody because the ICOs and these cryptocurrencies are there's no regulation on them. So it is, if you're not comfortable with an investment that is protected by your government regulators, then don't get into the Bitcoin cryptocurrencies yet. It might be regulated in a good 5 to 10 years from now. I hope not. But if you're not comfortable, don't do it. Go out and do something else. If you're comfortable investing in the stock market, go do that. If you're comfortable investing in physical gold and silver, go do that. If you're not comfortable having a babysitter without a babysitter, don't get into the cryptos, because there are no babysitters in the cryptos.
Bingo. Absolutely. Absolutely. So which, right now in terms of what's on your radar is the cryptocurrencies or the ICOs. I know that you've been a big advocate of talking about Ethereum and, and different other cryptocurrencies. So which one right now have your eyes on?
Right now, if a couple of my top picks, I would say my number one pick, and truthfully, it's my number one investment, is Vertasium. Vertasium is going to change the way people transact business with each other and change the way our markets work and our exchanges work. My fight against the silver manipulation, it's like it's screaming at a tank to stop what you're doing. Stop. And me and the Gata boys and all that, everybody in the silver warriors out there, we are screaming as loud as we can, but nobody is listening, because that's the way the system runs. You cannot run an unbacked fiat monetary system without controlling the price of everything on the COMEX via computers and derivatives. So we can keep screaming at that tank, or we can go invent something else. And Reggie Middleton has gone out and invented something else, a peer-to-peer type of exchange that takes out the middlemen, takes out the COMEX and the LBMA. It takes out the New York Stock Exchange and the SEC and the regulators. It takes out the DTCC that record, or is supposed to record all this stuff. And not only that, it's a software platform that will eliminate all the banker fees and all the criminality that goes on, because it's visible, these transactions. So yeah, Vertasium is my number one holding. But I got more.
Excellent. Yeah, go for it. Go. Keep going.
I really like Litecoin. And the reason I really like Litecoin is because what Bitcoin just went through. Bitcoin went through this or is going through. It's not even done. Yes, we had the soft fork, but there's another fork coming in December. The Bitcoin programmers, the core programmers, wanted to make Bitcoin a very strong store of value. They weren't real interested in getting the price lower and the speed of transactions much lower. So that was the big fight in Bitcoin. And there's no problem with having some other currency challenge the Bitcoin means of exchange aspect. That is Litecoin. Litecoin's 4 times faster. It's got all these bells and whistles, and it's cheaper, and we really can buy a cup of coffee with Litecoin. I think Litecoin is massively undervalued at $40. I think it should be at a minimum of 1/4 of the Bitcoin price, which would put it at, right now, I don't even know what Bitcoin is, say $2,800.
Let me refresh it real quick, and I'll tell you. Yeah,
so
27.19.
Okay, let's just say $700. Litecoin should be at $700, but right now it's trading at 45. I think that's a screaming buy. I really like the company Populous. And Cliff High just did an interview with the CEO, this guy Steve Nico Williams, who explained what Populous is, and it's a way to get the banksters out of one of their most profitable ventures, which is invoice financing. And it's a $3 trillion market. Invoice financing is if people have outstanding invoices 30 to 90 days out, these small businesses, they need to borrow money against their invoices. It's a huge market in the banking system. Huge fees are charged, and this basically goes in, the Populous PPT token goes in and takes all those middlemen out. And it's an amazing invention, so I got high hopes for that one. Another one is Salt Lending. Salt lending is kind of a mysterious. It's not mysterious. It just hasn't been. It hasn't been pumped. It hasn't been pumped like all these other ICOs, and they're still in kind of a pre-ICO offering. And what Salt Lending will do, it's kind of like a bridge from our current way of people getting loans based on, you buy a house, you put up your house as collateral against a loan. And there's all kinds of collateral lending that goes on in the financial system today. What Salt Lending does, SALT stands for Secure Automated Lending Technology. So what it does, and they can really securitize anything, but they're starting with cryptocurrencies as the collateral for loans, because they see that the cryptocurrencies are just exploding and they're going to get a lot bigger as the old system fades. So they're saying, okay, we're going to link up banks to cryptocurrency holders so that cryptocurrency holders can monetize some of their crypto holdings without selling them and taking like a tax hit or anything like that. And so, because a lot of these crypto holders don't want to sell their cryptos because they see the future is all about crypto. So this will get you cash in your pocket without having to sell your crypto. And the reason banks like it is secured lending is really a pain in the ass to get your hands on most security. It's a pain in the ass to repo a house, and you foreclose on a house is the way the banks will get their money out of that loan. And then all the costs involved with that and everything. This is written on the Ethereum blockchain, and it's automatic. Your tokens are liquidated if you don't pay your payments. So the banks love it because they don't have to do anything. All the costs of repoing an asset are gone, and it happens automatically because of the smart contracts. So it's really exciting. And that pre-ICO it just went on hold after their third offering for $1.50 per token. And you're going to need the tokens to take out loans. They collect fees and tokens. So tokens are taken off the markets. So it's kind of deflationary type of thing. And it's really exciting. If you check it out, some really big names are in on it. And that's Salt Lending. I also like 10X, which went public. The symbol is PAY, PAY. It's a debit card. It's a Visa and MasterCard debit card based on a basket of cryptos, and you get rewards.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very similar to your rewards program with United Airlines and things like that. But this is using cryptos, and you can pay with different types of cryptos. Like you could pay with Ethereum, or you could pay, and it converts everything for you. It's really, that one's pretty cool. So yeah, those are the types of companies that are going to dislodge the old way of doing business, and we're going to use these type of companies in the future. In 100 years, these type of companies will be around because it's more efficient and it cuts out all the waste in between.
Exactly. So in the future, we won't have banks. We'll have different organizations that are doing very disruptive things to help with that. And so Veritas is the Veritasium, correct? Veritasium.
Yeah. Veritasium is a company, and it sells software and consulting services. And then Veri, VERI, is the symbol for Veritas, which is a token that is used in the software program of Veritasium.
Okay, so for example, and we've already named out a couple of how the system is going to change. So almost lending is a great example. So potentially peer-to-peer lending based upon cryptocurrency, where you won't have to necessarily go to a bank to borrow money. Even the ICOs are a great example too. That if in the event that somebody has a product, a service, that they can actually potentially mine their own coin initial offering to help fund their business away from traditional accredited investors and all that.
Oh, exactly. And the amount of fees that are being chopped off because you don't have, the Goldman Sachs of the world, or JP Morgans, you have to deal with to deal with an IPO. The fees are getting chopped off. It's cheaper, it's more efficient, it's faster, and you don't have that third party risk. The banking model is built on fractional reserve banking. They create, for every dollar they take in, they create 10 to 15 other dollars, and that's how money is created, which is great when the system goes up, when asset values go up, but when it crashes, we have banking crashes. This Veritasium and all these cryptocurrencies and the blockchain model of doing business will eliminate the banking problem because it eliminates the banks. You don't need them anymore, and you're not going to have the fractional reserve system.
Yeah, great. And to give our listeners a perfect example, I'm involved in a medicinal cannabis business, and we're looking at the funding aspect. And for example, there's this one company that wants to assist with this. They want $3,500 just to begin the relationship, Bix. And in addition to that, on the fundraise, the initial offering, the raise that they generate, they want 6% off the top of the line of the funds that they raise.
Yep, and all that. I don't know if it's a criminal organization, but all that is extra costs associated with the old system, and those are the things that the blockchain technologies are really getting rid of, and it's streamlining everything, and it's amazing, and I'm really excited about it, and the people who on the road to Ruta who've been following my work for a while can tell I'm really excited about it. I haven't been this excited about it since finding out about silver was the only option prior to 2010. And I still think silver is going to go moonshot very soon because it is absolutely necessary for all these new technology, all the hardware of the new technology that's coming, and that there's very little silver left that gets consumed, and it's been rigged for so long. When that rigging is gone, you're talking about a silver moonshot that will be staggering. It'll be right up there with some of the best ICOs. Like Vertasium has gone from $2 to $200. That type of thing will happen to silver as well.
Yeah, I brought this up, and I'm not sure if it's due to the split or anything, but Bitcoin Cash is up like 75% in the last 24 hours.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it started at zero, right? So yeah, it's okay. Very volatile. So, Bitcoin Cash is interesting because it's very volatile. I don't know if it'll be. I have no idea where it'll be in the long run. Right now, people are loving it who own Bitcoin because they have Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and so they basically got whatever the difference is there. It's trading at 1/5 of Bitcoin. They've almost instantly got extra money, and I think a lot of them are selling off one or the other, Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, to get into some of the more exciting technology companies, like for example Populous or Vertasium or Pay. Really exciting time for the people who have Bitcoin because they have extra liquidity that they can spread out through the whole crypto space. Will Bitcoin Cash be around? I don't know. I think it's great. It's in the last 24 hours, it's up 74%. But remember, it's only been alive for about 24 hours. So it'll be very volatile in that world. I don't think anybody knows where it's going to go as far as trading. I know there's a lot of traders in there trying to play the hourly and daily swings in putting their algorithmic trading bots all over it. So I stayed away from the whole Bitcoin split thing, and it's not over. And I think that's something everybody should recognize, is that the consternation we've been through over the last couple of years with Bitcoin and the fork and hard fork, it's not even close to over. The SegWit implementation is until December. So yeah, I'm a big fan of, instead of being in Bitcoin, I'm in Litecoin, because I think Litecoin is massively undervalued, and anything that happens with Bitcoin will be positive or negative for Bitcoin will be good for Litecoin. So yeah,
right. And with Litecoin is established as peer-to-peer currently, right? So you can directly exchange that with other persons, right? I mean,
yeah, you can do that with Litecoin. Is a currency. It's not a token. It is a currency, and so yeah, it's just like Bitcoin. I can send you Litecoin, or you can send me Litecoin, and I can buy things with Litecoin. But it's the closest, it's the longest lasting relation. It was the first. It was the second currency ever made. It was right after Bitcoin. And the whole idea, I mean, really the comparison between gold and silver is very similar to the comparison between Bitcoin and Litecoin. As far as gold being a store of value, Bitcoin is a store of value, silver being at the time, a means of exchange, but a very undervalued asset. And Litecoin is definitely a means of exchange and definitely a very undervalued asset.
So true. Very well said. And this has been a very informative show, Bix. And any other closing thoughts? Any we can't offer direct financial advice, but I think that you had a very important message in regards to out with the old, in with the new, and technology is evolving, is changing about every industry. The cryptocurrency space will continue to do that. So, any closing thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, this is direct financial advice. Do your homework. Don't rely on the government to do it for you. Get out there and do your homework. You think I knew any of this stuff a year ago? No, I didn't. I mean, this is all stuff I've been learning over the past year. Unless you study and learn and continue to grow and invest in things that make sense and remove yourself from things that don't. Um, if you enjoy it, great. If you just want to sit back and wait everything out, do that. But I suggest everybody do your homework around the cryptos and how it's going to change the world, because it absolutely is going to change the world. This is not a bubble, and you should be very mad at people who told you to stay out because it was a bubble. And that will become more and more evident over the next year when these cryptos go up thousands of percents because the old system is crashing and the new one is taking over.
Excellent. And if they don't know already, they need to. So how can people learn more about your work, Bix?
You can go to, and you can get some crypto too. You can go to roadtoruta.com is my website. And there's a free sign up form on the left that you get free emails and a free book. And then if you're more interested and you want to get some crypto, go to the membership site, which is a 1-year membership. And I give out $30 in right now. It's paper wallet Veritasium. You don't even know how. You don't have to know what cryptos are. It gets mailed to your front door, and that's $2.99 for a year, and it gets you all 3,000 articles I've written about this stuff.
Boom, there you go. So go out there, make sure to follow up on that. And this is CJ. V will be back next week. Again, he's out on vacation. And go to roguemoney.net, check out our great articles that are listed there. Make sure to follow us on Steemit. You know, we're very involved in the Steemit community where you can instantly, if you participate in the Steemit community, get yourself some Steem as well and follow the progression regarding what's going on in the cryptocurrency space. So this is CJ, and we are over and out.